Gil Garcetti on the day that O.J. went on a low-speed chase that we will never forget and was part of part 3 of the 5-part ESPN Films 30 for 30 documentary, O.J. Made in America. And Gil Garcetti, the 40th district attorney in the history of Los Angeles County, right here on The Rich Eisen Show. Good to see you, sir.
Thank you.
What's it been like watching this documentary for you?
Well, I am grateful to my son and
the current mayor of Los Angeles.
Yes, current mayor, for encouraging me to do it because, as you know, I've remained silent for almost 22 years about this case. Once I left the DA's office at the assistance of voters, I said I'm moving on in a different direction. And the only thing I talk about now in a criminal justice issue is the death penalty, but otherwise I've never talked about O.J., nothing. So see this again and see how deep this particular film is. It was eye-opening for me in some respects, too. I was too close to it. My job and responsibility was simply, do we have enough evidence to prove him beyond a reasonable doubt? Not fully appreciating and understanding the depth of the feelings of injustice and the mistrust that African Americans had in the criminal justice system.
So your son twisted your arm to do this?
No, he didn't twist my arm.
Okay,
I just happened to mention that I've been talking to Ezra Edelman.
The director.
The director. My son had gone to school with Ezra's younger brother. And Eric, out of the blue, said, "You should do it, Dad." And I was stunned. I really was. Because, I'd moved away from all that. And he said, "You have facts and information you've never shared with anyone. You have perceptions and insights. I think you can trust Ezra to do the kind of job that you would be proud of being associated with."
So when you say this is eye-opening to you, you were not aware at the time the depth of the feelings of the African-American community about the injustice they felt towards the LAPD and vice versa, maybe?
I grew up, I was born in a house less than a mile from where O.J. Simpson earned his Heisman Trophy. I grew up in a racially mixed neighborhood. I've always been involved in the African American community, and I had understood the distrust they had of LAPD, but the depth of their feelings about the justice system, the injustice of the justice system, especially as it affects African Americans, I did not fully appreciate that depth.
So when it came time, let's just start right here with the trial, because that's going to be part of tonight. Tomorrow night, the whole documentary about that. Did you at any point consider yourself to be the one to prosecute the case?
I have 1,100 lawyers in my office, thousands of cases. First, people wanted me to try the Menendez brothers case, and then maybe the Michael Jackson case. The District Attorney of Los Angeles cannot get involved in a particular case because there are thousands of cases, thousands of important cases that are being handled. So I assigned Bill Hodgman, who I believe was the perfect lawyer for this case, to handle the case.
And then Marcia Clark wound up with it because Bill he took ill, essentially, right? Is that what ended up happening?
It was more than ill. Turns out he had a congenital heart defect. His trial career is now over. But we're very close to trial. So, Marcia, who Bill had asked to come on to assist, and she's an excellent lawyer. So, she came in and brought on Chris Darden, who I knew is also an excellent lawyer. And the team went forward.
So when it came down time to get to trial, and even though O.J. was living in Brentwood and the murders took place in Brentwood, the trial did not take place in Brentwood. It went downtown to Los Angeles.
Right.
Were considerations taken into that, the race relations taken into that when you did that? Gil?
What you're asking very indirectly, Rich, said if you had tried it in Santa Monica, which would have been the jurisdiction to try it, you would have had a white or whiter jury, so maybe a different verdict. Well, first of all, that's incorrect. Had it been tried in Santa Monica, you would have opened it up to the same number of people countywide, not just West LA, quote, white people, end quote. But I made a political mistake. And the political mistake was not moving it myself downtown. The case was always going to be tried downtown. The presiding judge, Cecil Mills, had told me, this case is going to be tried downtown. It's not going to be tried in Santa Monica. They had an earthquake. They had problems there. We just finished building out the 8th floor of this 18-story building for high security, high profile cases. It's going to be downtown. I should have let the judge make the announcement.
As opposed to
me, because everyone said, you know, okay, I'm the guy who moved it downtown.
You were not.
No, the judge, the court.
And here we are 22 years later. I'm learning that just here because I always thought that you were the one who made the decision to move this case downtown.
Yeah.
At what point did you realize that whatever slam dunk evidence you had wasn't going to be enough to convict O.J. Simpson?
Two issues, two things. One, well, three. One, when we got the jury that we got, against the advice of our jury consultants. That's not the jury to pick. Two, when Mark Furman turned out to be the racist he is in front of the jury. And then three, an encounter with President Carter.
Okay, let's talk about that one.
In the middle of the trial, I'm trying to be a good CEO. You know, I have all these cases, but this has my focus, obviously. So I'm trying to decide, all right, as a good CEO, I have to be prepared to handle any eventuality. In a criminal case, there are only three eventualities. A guilty verdict, which I did not expect, but I knew what to say if we got a guilty verdict. A hung jury, which I expected, I knew what to say. But if we got a not guilty, boy, I really didn't know what to say. Because to be viewed as a racial verdict, it wouldn't be just horrible for, you know, the city of Los Angeles, my office, but for the entire nation. So I tasked my staff, what do I say? They came up with zero. I convened a group of 30 black ministers, roughly.
This was during the trial?
Yes.
Jury deliberations you're talking about?
No,
Okay, when
before
was this?
the deliberations.
Before
in the middle of the trial.
Middle of the trial.
Middle of the trial.
You, Gil Garcetti, the district attorney of Los Angeles, called all these folks together to talk about what might come.
Right.
Okay, sure.
About 30 black ministers, all respected individuals. I said, okay, I went through the scenarios. Now, if it's a not guilty, what do we say? And they looked at me. Every one of them was saying the same thing. Oh, he's guilty. Don't worry about it. They're going to find him guilty. And I said, well, yeah, okay, maybe so. But what if they don't? It's going to be bad for you, your community, and bad for everyone. They came up with zero. Then I heard that President Carter was coming into town. So I don't know him, but a little chutzpah here. I reached out to him. Said, Mr. President, could I meet with you about the O.J. Simpson case? And he said, yeah, sure. So went out to the city of Linwood, where he was working Habitat for Humanity. You know, he had his carpenter's belt on. I go out there, and he takes it off, and we go into a room by ourselves. And I go through the scenarios with him. And he looks at me, and it's getting like cold cocked in the stomach, unexpectedly. I said, Gil, they're coming back not guilty. And I guess I must have looked shocked, surprised. I said, well, of course he did it. Everyone knows he did it. But he's not a street thug. He's not a danger to anyone else. And you and I know that many innocent black men have been convicted in this country and some executed. This is payback time. There's nothing that you can say that's going to make this easy. There's nothing I can say. It's going to take a number of years before black and white people really start talking to one another.
This is what President Jimmy Carter said to you.
Jimmy Carter.
And what did you do with this information? Did you just sit on it? You share it with...
I hung my, my mouth open for a long time. No, I told others about it. And I just, the only thing I could do is said, I hope he's wrong. And, you know, my statements after the verdict, I was ticked off again. Maybe not fully surprised at the verdict at that point, but really ticked off that they had not deliberated, they had not analyzed the evidence. When you spend a couple hours on months-long trial with a mountain of evidence, the decision had already been made by most before they even started to deliberate.
Before they even walked in the room.
Yes.
Gil Garcetti, the district attorney at the time of the O.J. Simpson trial here on The Rich Eisen Show. We're back in 60 ticks of the clock. I want to ask you about the low-speed chase and, of course, obviously the glove and some of the other decisions that your attorneys made during the trial of the century, essentially.
Yep.
And that's coming up next here on The Rich Eisen Show. Welcome back to the Rich Eisen Show. Gil Garcetti, the former district attorney of Los Angeles, here on the Rich Eisen Show. You just pointed to the mug that's right there in front of you with my show logo of me running in my suit. Go ahead and ask me the question you just asked me. Go ahead.
Did you ever work for Hertz?
No, I did not work for Hertz. That just happened. I figured we should share that one with the audience. No, that's me at the Combine every year. I run in my suit. So last night on the part of the documentary, part 3 is the low-speed chase, and it appeared you were getting down to be interviewed by
Ted Koppel.
Ted Koppel, and so you were watching the low-speed chase sitting in this chair, essentially?
Yeah.
Did at any point in time you pick up the phone and call members of the law enforcement to say, what's happening here?
No,
Gil?
I did not. I was befuddled by the fact, why don't you just stop this guy? Stop him. But they made another decision.
Who made the decision?
I can't answer that. I do not know who adds.
To this day, you do not know who was the law enforcement official who was spearheading the chase of O.J. Simpson?
It wasn't the most important area of inquiry for me once he was arrested.
But it seemed, I don't know all the transcripts. I mean, I have read a lot about it. I've seen tons of documentaries about it, including this one. It seems to me was this ever brought up in the trial?
What?
The low-speed chase, where he's got a disguise, cash, passport in the car. He's just had his best friend read what sounds to me like a suicide note on television.
Sure.
The whole country thought he was guilty to the point where everyone was wondering if you could even get a fair jury pool together of his peers. Was this ever brought up in the trial?
I don't recall what parts of it were brought up, but we tried getting a lot of evidence in that the court wouldn't permit.
And this was one of them?
I don't recall specifically.
Okay, because to me, I just don't remember that this would be, to me, this is his, I understand there's bloody prints, and I understand there was a blood trail on the Bronco that led all the way to Bundy and back to Rockingham, but to me, this is, the whole country thought he was guilty at that point in time. 100%.
Well, I wouldn't go that far.
Why?
But there are a lot of people who thought he was guilty at that point.
Okay. Sure. And so at this point in time, you're sitting there watching the low-speed chase, and now what are you thinking once he's finally apprehended, Gil, at that point in time? What were you just putting together? How do we...
I'm still ticked off at the whole situation, that he hadn't surrendered the way he had been, arrangements had been made with his lawyer.
With Shapiro.
Right. But, okay, so now we're going to go to work.
And that's where you turn to Bill Hodgman and Marcia Clark.
Correct.
Okay. What do you think, if you could wave a wand and change the way that your team handled the actual case, what would be the one thing that you would change? There's a lot that went down. I know, from Furman being put on the stand, the glove, the jury selection. Anything else that I'm missing that you might be able to?
Probably the jury selection is the main point for me. But there's also another element we've never talked about, and I don't think anyone else has ever talked about.
Please.
And that is the timing of the indictment. The defense made, I think, the most strategic, brilliant decision that we did not expect. And that is, we're going to go to trial immediately. In other words, we're not going to, quote, waive time, which is a legal jargon for giving up your constitutional right to a speedy trial. And in a murder trial like this, if it takes a year, 2 years before the case goes to trial, that's normal. But they knew what we knew. They knew that the sympathy, the disbelief that O.J. could have done this is going to dissipate. And two, sooner or later, we're going to find more evidence, specifically evidence that he was, in fact, wearing the Bruno Magli shoes that were the shoe prints at the scene of the murder that he claimed, I've never owned any Bruno Magli shoes. We knew eventually there would be evidence showing that he had those.
And then the sideline broadcast videos?
That's right.
Were shown where he had those.
Correct. Correct.
And the gloves, he was wearing the gloves as well, right?
Yes.
I just shake my head sometimes and wonder. And we even had a caller into the show think he couldn't have done it physically. Yesterday, said that on this show. Somebody here in Los Angeles.
Well,
said that.
okay. We're a big country. There are going to be a lot of people who have minority opinions.
Is this still an open case, Gil? Seriously.
Excuse me for laughing, but
No.
no. O.J. Simpson's guilty of brutally murdering Ron Goldman and Nicole Brown Simpson. End. Period. Exclamation mark.
So there's no active search,
None.
even to,
We know who committed the murders.
because obviously it would be double jeopardy if something came up right now.
You can't try them.
Did you see that there was that knife that was found allegedly?
Yes.
Or kept by somebody after
Right.
O.J.'s Rockingham house was
Yep.
razed? What did you think when you heard that?
I discarded it.
Why?
It just doesn't make sense. I mean, that place was searched so thoroughly. Who knows how it came about, where it was, but there's just no way.
What was determined that it was not part of all
Apparently
of this?
so.
Do
Right.
you think, so where do you think that knife is right now?
Your guess
Gil
is as good
Garcetti?
as mine. I have no idea.
But you must have some working theories. Do you?
No, it doesn't make any difference to me. I know he committed the crime. I don't have to go beyond that.
Have you? What would be the word other than murder, that you associate with O.J. Simpson?
Guilty.
Other than guilty or murder, what would you call him?
One word, I don't know. If I could come up with one word, he simply got away with murder, with murderers.
Mm-hmm.
That's not justice.
The word I'm looking at seeing this documentary is sociopath. He strikes me as a sociopath, just somebody who just including even just the part of the documentary where he pulls into Rockingham, to see his mom, right? And I guess the SWAT team member was telling his stories about how he realized how he was going to get him out of the car, just talk to him about himself. And also how O.J.'s criminal defense team swapped out all of the photographs and put in African-American art in his house.
Yeah.
Just the whole thing strikes me. It was always all about him. It was never about Harry Edwards. Even admitted to that when we had it on the show yesterday. It's always all about him. Always.
But why do you just focus on O.J.? This is how America treats little boys who show this enormous potential to be great athletes. Mm-hmm. They are being told, like, if you're a little boy, mm-hmm. and I'm an agent, come in and said, Rich, man, you've really got it. You're really great. Mm-hmm. And then you begin to hear this every day for years. I'm great, I'm great, I'm great. You're on a pedestal now, and you are maybe a great athlete, but you also think you're great enough to get away with anything. And how many of our athletes, not just O.J., of our great athletes, seem to get away with virtually anything they want?
Well, but nobody's ever done double murder, though, that I know of. I shouldn't say nobody. There's obviously Oscar Pistorius in South Africa,
Yep.
who's been convicted of shooting his girlfriend.
Yep.
And he apparently had some sort of domestic violence issues as well.
That was the issue I was going to raise. So much of this is rooted in domestic violence. That is the real root. That's where it begins. And when you become an athlete, a male athlete, and you're being told how great you are and you can get away with anything, and all these, young women especially are clamoring over you, I want to spend a night with you, whatever it is, okay.
Do you take any solace that O.J.'s in prison for something else?
I certainly don't feel sorry for him that he's in prison, but this may surprise you. Where there was not justice in him being acquitted, I don't think there was real justice either in the 33-year sentence that he received.
What do you mean by that?
Well, you can say it was payback, but for what he actually did, the crimes that he committed, and for his, quote, criminal past, 33 years was over the top, in my opinion.
So in other words, you think O.J. Simpson has been wronged? What you're saying?
Well, you can put it that way. I don't feel sorry for him.
Sure.
But in terms of the justice system that I was a part of for 32 years, a 33-year sentence for that kind of a crime,
it's not the scales that we're talking about, is what you're saying.
Correct.
Gil, thank you for coming on this show.
You're very welcome.
I appreciate that.
Pleasure.
And I appreciate you sharing the stories here. And as somebody who's, you know, lived through the case and watching it, and I'm thrilled that you decided to listen to your son and sit down and tell your stories. Because I mean, it's just it's important. It's important to hear this sort of stuff.
It's an important part
Gil.
of history of Los Angeles and of the nation.
Well, and I hope that justice is served regardless of race, color,
absolutely.
or creed. That's what this
we
is.
want.
That's what this country's about.
That's right.
And it seems like, man, we get all mixed up.
We did, but it's not the only time. There'll probably be other places, but there's no perfect system of justice any place in the world, but ours in the United States is still the best.
Gil, thank you for coming on. I appreciate
pleasure.
it.
Thank you, Rich.
That's Gil Garcetti.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.